us this afternoon or morning, I guess you could say. My name's Jackie. I'm the branch manager here in Danbury with Robert Half, but I'm also the Young Professionals Council Chairwoman, so would love the opportunity to speak with you a little bit more today about how to land your next job. So let's get started, and Amy, totally fine with recording.
Yep, gotcha. Thank you.
Awesome, great. Wonderful. So let's get started into this. So as we mentioned, how to land your next position, we're doing myths, tips, and ideas. Here with Robert Half, we do temporary and temporary to hire with accounting and finance and also office administration. But I'm here to kind of help you learn how to land your next position. To do that, we'll go through some myths, share the latest best practices and tips from Robert Half. So first, we're going to be reading a few myths and actually talking about the facts. Number one, don't bother applying for a job unless you tick all the boxes. Fact, employers are actually willing to relax certain criteria. Even if you don't have the exact education, certifications, years of experience, or specific technical skills that a job post asks for, it's important to go ahead and apply if you have most of the basics. 78% of workers would apply for a job even if they don't match all the qualifications. And it's interesting that 62% of workers have been offered a job when they didn't meet all the requirements. Myth number two, if there's a job opening, you'll find it on the internet. That may be true for certain positions, but many jobs are actually not posted. Sometimes, you'll actually notice that if it's not on an actual job board, it might be on a source like LinkedIn. It could be in a Facebook group. It could be on something like Craigslist, but it also could just be by word of mouth and people that you know. We're going to jump into a little bit more detail later about how to find these unposted positions. Myth, temp jobs are bad for your career. Fact is the interim is in, especially when we have, new to the workforce students that are looking for opportunities and maybe people who have had a little bit of a gap in their resume. It is important to get some experience to help bridge that gap or help enter you into the workforce. You can find this by sometimes a temporary opportunity, but also volunteer work as well. More employers prefer, to see that there's some sort of that information on your resume. Sometimes temporary is like an on-the-job audition, checking out, your performance in real time and seeing whether you fit within a corporate culture. Same thing for you. It's an opportunity for you to try the position and the organization out before you sign up to be a long-term potential full-time employee with their organization. As I mentioned, too, interim jobs are especially great for recent graduates, workers thinking about changing their area of specialization and professionals who, could be on-ramping after being out of the workforce for a little while. Great way to enter or re-enter a field. So openness to hiring temporary staff compared to 2 years ago, as you can see, has been shifting towards much more open for having professionals actually join staff through a temporary basis. So 53% of employers are more often to hiring temporary staff than they were even 2 years ago. When assessing applicants, 7 in 10 managers considered consistent temporary work as comparable to a full-time position. All right, back to the myths. 4, employers look at every applicant. In the not so distant past, a human actually took a first pass at every application. If you had been an HR assistant or the manager, but one of them actually would read every cover letter and resume, well, mostly, but this is actually maybe still changing for some small businesses. So number 4 fact here is actually that algorithms often take the first pass at applicants. So there's a lot of sophisticated software now and algorithms that are actually often used as the first judge of an application. So for larger companies like Fortune 500s, almost all of them use an applicant tracking system. Later in the presentation, we'll actually talk about how to pass the machine's criteria and get your resume seen by actual human eyes. Myth number 5, if you negotiate salary, you come across greedy. Our last myth is that if you come across being greedy and if you negotiate your starting salary or any other part of your compensation package, the fact is that salary negotiations are becoming the new, norm. Job seekers who tried to negotiate pay in 2017 was at 39%. In 2018, it was at 55%. and now managers who expect candidates to negotiate is actually at 70%. So it's interesting to see just what a candidate-driven market really does entail. And again, we do have to make sure that we're properly putting people in positions and offering competitive salaries to actually attract candidates to come work for your organization. So yes, as we said, 70% of hiring managers expect candidates to counter with a higher figure. Don't risk leaving money on the table. Later in the presentation, we'll actually talk about how to negotiate your starting salary. So where to find the positions? Let's start with this. So the first step of landing job is actually to find those roles. There are so many places that it's very overwhelming online to look. And again, most people actually look at online job boards. You're likely familiar with some of these job boards that are up here on the screen. We don't really need to talk about, them too much. But, do be careful about uploading your resumes if you're currently employed. This is important. Your boss or human resources department could come across it if they're posting a job on the same site. So just really be, cognizant of that. And one thing to remember is not to just limit your search to these boards. Specialized job boards exist for workers in almost every field, career stage for entry level to retirees, and geographic area. For example, Craigslist is a prime example of a location-based job board. Dice is specific for tech jobs. Behance is for creative professionals. There's a few other job boards that sometimes that we, tend to see some positions being posted up on. But if you get overwhelmed by screens and screens of results on the job sites, these specific job boards are really ideal for that. So start with industry associations and professional groups that you're involved in. Some job sites are open to everyone, while others are for paying members only. So check out national and state level groups as well. If you love a certain company or organization or really want to work there, absolutely check out their career website, and they'll often post what positions that they're currently recruiting for. You might also do some research and find out how to reach out to the head of the department you'd want to work in. Just be careful to be respectful of not crossing that line of being too aggressive. Of course, staffing firms, Robert Half actually has a job search tool that allows you to see all of our jobs that are posting, and whenever we get an opportunity, and we do post it to our job boards as well. So there's no limit, or there's no need to limit yourself to something like Indeed, Monster, Career Builder. There are a lot of online options, so reach out, as well, as wide and as deep to start looking for those opportunities for yourself. And often a good hint here is just to be sure to set up alerts for all these sites, so you actually get notified of the jobs that are relevant to you. So as soon as that comes in, pings your email, that that's an opportunity you might be interested in. Social media, it's not just for sharing pictures of, your dinner or vacation. Each platform has its unique features, so strengths and weaknesses, and they really should be a part of every job seeker's toolkit. So let's briefly touch on major players in this field. So of course we have LinkedIn, pioneer in professional social networking, launched in 2003. This is a place to post your online resume and make a few work-related connections. It really started taking off when it allowed companies to post job openings and scour the site for potential new employees. So here is a profile for Paul McDonald, Senior Executive Director for Robert Half. And this is just an example of what that would look like. If you're serious about your job search, you really do need to have a presence on LinkedIn. The page with jobs you might like based off of your profile. Applying can typically be completed within a few clicks. Recruiters and hiring managers can find you by geography, industry, specialty area, specific skills, software expertise, language abilities, and more. So make sure your profile is as rich and populated as possible. Professional headshot, endorsements, skills, accomplishments. Facebook, really, of course, was a way for college students to be connected, and really mushroomed into a really powerful tool for connecting people, including job seekers and potential employers. The first thing here is low key. Let your friends know maybe you've been looking for an opportunity. If you're in between positions, you can be more public about it than if you were employed. But tell people what kind of position you're looking for. Also, keep an eye out on your news feed for friends who share openings at their company. It's definitely been something that even some local job boards have been posting on Facebook too. So definitely something to keep your eyes out and looking for. And also here, this is just a little bit of Robert Half's with the 2020 salary guides. Oops. And this just goes over a little bit more information that you can see that there's a payroll administrator role posted and credit analyst role that's actually under the job section on this example for Facebook. You can send a message directly to the Robert Half social media there as well. And then, of course, this just goes over something that rolled out in 2017 is actually the Jobs on Facebook feature. So you might see something like this. Example here is specifically filtered for legal jobs within 60 miles of Menlo Park, which is where our headquarters are. But you can filter in many different ways. Applying couldn't really be simpler. You just really click a button and Facebook auto-populates most of the fields with your information. You can add more details if you want and literally just hit send. Short and simple, originally designed mainly for, lower skilled jobs, though now there's a really good number of high-paying positions and requiring a lot of education and experience that have been posted here. But even though potential employers can see only the public version of your profile, settings are tricky. So play with it safe, clean up your photos and posts and double check your privacy features and settings before using this feature for sure. Going into Twitter. I'm personally not the best with Twitter, but I do follow it. So this is actually a really fast-paced platform that's really become a job board. Companies and recruiters are posting short snippets and a link for positions they might be applying for. Applying via Twitter has the advantage of showing off your digital savvy and thought leadership for positions in maybe marketing, IT, SEO. I actually once participated in and it was like an online job discussion that was just based through Twitter. It was actually very interesting. It was a few years ago, but a lot of people really had a good time with it and was able to, again, show off their tech savviness, but also ask questions and have a real-time conversation. So I thought that was interesting. It was called, I believe, a Twitter meetup. But either way, it's important for you to follow the people and companies that you admire or ones that you're looking to potentially find a job specifically with. Look for the blue verified badge so you don't get suckered in by company lookalikes. And then Twitter levels the playing field by giving you access to decision makers. You most likely don't have executives' work email, but you can get in touch with them if you're active on Twitter, of course, appropriately. Other social media, there's Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat. These aren't places that maybe you would go to find job postings, although a few companies might target Gen Z, might post open positions there. So, if companies you like are on these platforms, follow them so you can see more of their corporate culture. As we saw earlier, some positions never even make it online. So if a job opening is perfect for someone that the hiring manager knows once worked with or met at a networking event, the position actually may never be publicly posted. Sometimes openings are confidential and highly sensitive, so an organization relies on a recruiter to quietly bring them candidates. So how do you find these types of job openings? They really find you through your network. Some people have this image of networking as a bunch of, people making small talk, delivering elevator speeches, or adding, some sort of second degree connections on LinkedIn, and that's really far from the complete picture. Effective networking is really about widening your circle and deepening your relationships. The people most likely to recommend you for a job opening or contact you about great opportunities are really not the online acquaintances that you've never met before or in person, but rather than those who really know you and can vouch for your abilities. So, some tips and tricks for better connections. Online networking is easy, effective, and important, but, offline networking, FaceTime is even better. This means, going to industry conferences, local meetups, professional association events, business lunches, young professional council networking group meetings, to name a few. And especially right now, though we can't go and meet in person sometimes, important to do a virtual cup of coffee. So, again, something to just kind of put into the back of your mind as you're looking for your next opportunity is just how can you better connect to your network? Look inward too. You could find that your next job in another department or branch of your company if that's something that you're looking for. And of course, just your personal networks. There's always you encounter people as you go about your daily life. Could be volunteering, could be just walking your dog, could be going to the coffee shop, but make the most of these opportunities to broaden your network and deepen your relationships. I think it's important to really kind of think about how you landed your most recent position. And if it's something from a network, then maybe that's where you'll find your next one too. So opportunity, when you found a cool job opportunity, then you really have to land it. So this is focusing on a little bit more about the resume is actually evolved. So most of the single most important parts of a successful job search is your resume. And like most everything in the realm of work, resumes have evolved to be effective in today's world. So substance over length, 1 page, 2 pages, length doesn't matter as much anymore. Most resumes are fed into that applicant tracking system as we were discussing, but experience dictates how long or short a resume should be. Applicant tracking system really cares less about the length and more about the keywords that are used organically. So that's important to really highlight, maybe looking at the job posting and highlighting the keywords that you find in that within your resume. One size does not fit all. You know how to customize your cover letter to a specific company, but you should do the same with your resume. It takes more time and effort, but the payoff actually can be huge for that. So if you're applying to several positions with the same job title, keywords and requirements will be slightly different depending on what the organization might be looking for. So really take the time and hone in on that. The objective is dead. So objective statements are out. They're really looking for something that's more of a summary statement, and they're very much more helpful. They tell employers things that maybe you can do for their company, what skills you would bring to their team, and how you could make their businesses more successful. So we're seeing more and more of summary statements as well. So I guess long live the summary. Display your letters. Employers are looking for degrees and certifications, so display these abbreviations prominently in your name, the summary and education or credentials section of your resume. For example, John Smith MBA. Quantify your accomplishments. Experience section of your resume is a place to present any detailed metrics whenever possible. You have different numbers depending on your background, but here are some questions to show how to call attention to the numbers while describing your strategic efforts. How much revenue did you generate for your company by assisting with business development? How much did you increase customer engagement or audience size through new business channels? How did you save the department by implementing new workflows? How many people have you trained or supervised? How did your recommendations to management help increase costs and increase volume and increase income? These are all really important actual topics that you can really quantify within your resume that would actually help you stand out a little more. So use strong, meaningful words, action-oriented words. Some good verbs are solved, resolved, accomplished, achieved, initiated, improved, and exceeded. And buzzwords like facilitated or participated in are actually weaker. They could be seen as an attempt to obscure a lack of real effectiveness or experience. You want to stay away from jargon and buzzwords. So definitely focus on the action-oriented words. Double check everything. A typo is a big blemish on your resume. Wrong form of their or your, manager instead of manager, retaliation instead of reconciliation. These are all really important things to just have appear. Double check your resume, reread, revise, read it out loud, put aside your resume, come back to it later, print it out, review it, do a quick proofread, very important and can go a long way. You need a cover letter. Even in 2020, you still need a cover letter. Far too often, job seekers treat it as an afterthought. They don't bother to write one, especially if the applicant tracking system says it's actually optional. But after your application gets past the applicant tracking system, your cover letter is your introduction to the human at the company. So at the end of all that, when it finally gets through to that piece of it, it's an opportunity for you to really knock your first impression out of the park. Couple quick tips for writing a winning cover letter is just don't rehash your resume. You want to draw attention to the experience and specific skills that make you an ideal candidate for the role. Mention relevant skills and personal qualities that your resume might not illustrate. Explain why you would love to have the position. Show what kind of research maybe you've done on the company, its mission, culture, key leadership, and demonstrate your enthusiasm and fit for the company and position, things that a resume really doesn't convey well. Customize your letter. You want to tailor your cover letter not just to the company, but to the position you're applying for. So writing a cover letter, employers can't ignore by tying it to the elements of the job that match your specific skills and experience. What are they asking for that you're especially good at? And that's where those keywords come into play again. Gather facts and figures that support your claims. If you're applying for a managerial role, mention the size of teams and budgets you've managed. If it's a sales role, describe specific sales goals that you've actually achieved. And you want to further personalize it by demonstrating your familiarity with a specific or industry, employer, type of position. And if someone at the company recommended that you apply for the position, mention their name and title if they give you permission to do so. Address concerns. Important to be proactive about possible red flags. Explain employment gaps or what might look like job hopping. If you're out of work, explain how you kept up with the industry and technology. Be matter of fact and brag a little. Don't hesitate to brag a little in your cover letter. Companies want confident employees who have a solid work record and love what they do. They know that these people who tend to perform better, serve as stronger team members, and have a greater potential to grow the business. Keep it concise. Hiring managers are busy and they won't have the patience to read a lot of text. 3 short paragraphs should really just do the job, really straight into the point. And as with the resume, double check and triple check everything. Utilize your peers to be able to run through it as well and read it aloud. And follow up. I think this is something that everyone asks, should you follow up after submitting your resume and cover letter? Yes, absolutely. As a recruiter, I know firsthand that the importance of an applicant who reaches out if they haven't heard back. An email, phone call could make a hiring manager pay a little extra attention to your resume. They might think this person is really showing initiative and perseverance, and which is ideal quality for this position. If you've never followed up after submitting application, here are some questions, or here are some actually answers for some of your questions. How long should I wait? I would give the employer a few days before you reach out. You definitely don't want to jump the gun a little bit, but they do need time to receive and process your application. So I would definitely say within a few days if you haven't heard, but definitely within the week following, put out a phone call or a quick email. How do I not annoy managers? You want to be concise and positive in your email or phone call and ask whether they received your application, whether the position's still available, and just a general timeline for hiring. And how many times should I follow up? You follow up until the employer gives you a reason to stop. So that means if you followed up several times and haven't made any progress, it's probably best to move on. If you never hear back despite following up, then the job was probably never meant to be. But I would just, know, I think you would know just based on how many times that you're reaching out, when might be too, or might be inappropriate to continue to follow up. Job search can often feel like a massive obstacle course, and the next stage of the process is the in-person interview. If you made it this far, you have a good chance to make it to the finish line. So a Robert Half survey actually showed that employers receive an average of 40 resumes per job posting, and about 18%, so 7 people, will be asked to interview. The odds get better when you get to the interview stage, but that still means 6 out of the 7 candidates won't get the job. And why didn't they get it? They could have been, 64% of senior managers said it's common for applicants to not live up to their promising resume. You obviously want to make a great first impression during the interview. So the key is to prepare diligently so you don't succumb to self-inflicted errors. Research common interview questions, practice delivering your answers, and figure out what to wear. These are things that you can do on your own. And what we want to focus on now are just the wrong things job seekers sometimes say during an interview, followed by better options. Sorry I'm late. Talk about getting off of the wrong foot. If you're late, employers will presume that you'll be late to work and that you're bad at time management. But if you're late, it's better to say something like, thanks for your patience, and, give a really good reason as to why you were late. Let's see here. When the answer in an interviewer's question is only, I don't know, you're likely to be one of the 6 interviewees who didn't get the position. A better response is that's a great question. Let me find out and get back to you. Don't be afraid to admit that you don't know something. What matters are honesty and proactiveness. And be sure to follow up with the answer quickly, like same day if you had to get back to that person. Oops. End of an interview, most hiring managers ask if you have questions. I don't have any questions. It's almost like saying that you really, don't care. Employers want to know that you're engaged and interested, so do your homework about the company and the role, and you'll most likely come up with some thoughtful questions to ask. Some good questions could be like, what does success look like for this position? What do you enjoy most about working here? And you can feel free to come up, with some of your own questions, but I always would utilize this time to do some research, or having done your research on the company, ask something that's really specific that would make them know that you took the time to do the research. Follow up again. After your interview, or after the interview, your number one priority is to remain top of mind with the hiring manager. So the best way to do so is following up again. This requires a delicate hand. You want to be persistent, but you don't want to, pester or come across as desperate. So let's say you had your interview on Tuesday. Within 24 hours, send a quick thank you note, or email is fine. This reaffirms your interest in the position and provides an opportunity to reemphasize your qualifications. If a week goes by and you haven't heard back, pick up the phone and call. If the employer has no update, ask when you can expect to hear back, and again, stress your interest in the position. As you follow up, definitely be aware of your tone. You don't want to come off too demanding. It's important to be considerate and polite when asking busy hiring managers for updates. You haven't been given a decision in another week, and another week passes, call once more and ask if you're still in the running. At this point, there's no need to beat around the bush. You want to know, if you're a strong contender for the position or not. If your contact seems reluctant to talk to you, or it seems like they've ghosted you, it's a sign to move on. But let's stay positive and think that out of the 7 candidates, you were the one that they actually went with and extended a job offer. Well, it's time to negotiate. Remember, your starting salary sets the baseline for future raises at this company and beyond. And it's certainly easier for you to ask for more money before you start a position. So now's the time when you have the most leverage and leeway. So familiarize yourself with salary trends. You're pretty sure you deserve a much higher starting salary, but what does the local job market say? We have our 2020 salary guides that are available online and also at your local Robert Half branch. These are really important for kind of benchmarking salaries. So you can consult this salary guide and the salary calculator that's online to determine just the going rate for your position, experience level, and your local geography. If you're in the running for one of today's like hot jobs, employer may be having a tough time finding someone with enough experience and skills that they're looking for. So that actually opens the door for you to negotiate a higher pay. Um, be the Goldilocks of timing. So if the employer is super eager to hire, or if your skills are in high demand, or you're just really awesome, you might be or get the job offer at the end of the first interview, but don't jump the gun. Most managers discuss salary during the second interview at the earliest. It may help to begin with discussions around benefits, perks, and bonuses before hitting salary topic. If the company doesn't bring up pay when making the offer, don't hesitate to do so yourself at this point. If you try to negotiate salary after you sign the paperwork and agreed to, a start date, it could definitely be too late. So you want to make sure that you're timing this appropriately. You're not alone. Many managers just like negotiating as well. Keeping your tone positive and diplomatic will help you, more effectively navigate the discussion. All it takes to find out is if there's flexibility in the budget is a simple question. I was hoping for something closer to blank. Is that possible? And wait for the response. Focus your desired salary. When negotiating, you might be tempted to give a wide salary range. That may seem smart, like hedging your bets against pricing yourself out of a job. But if you tell the hiring manager your ideal pay is between 60,000 to 90,000, don't be surprised if you're offered only 60,000. After that, you have no more room to really maneuver because they offered you what you asked for. So it's really important, after doing your research, you should know your red line, the number under which you would be willing to walk. State a specific number or narrow range. Let the employer offer this number. If they ask you, don't be afraid to turn around on them and ask what salary range they had in mind. Don't make it all about you. Negotiations are a two-way street. You need to frame your request for higher compensation in a way that conveys what the employer will gain in return. When you were preparing for a job interview, you had concrete examples of how your skills will benefit that company's bottom line. Remind them of that, as well as how excited you are to work for their company. And negotiate more than just salary. Salary is not the only thing on the table. There's often some give and take on benefits and perks too, especially if the manager actually can't quite meet your targeted salary number. It may be, less expensive for the employer to give you extra vacation days, and that actually might be more important to you. It could be flexible hours or partial work from home schedule. Consider what's valuable to you and what, you could or be interested in to make an offer more attractive. And that is how to land your next job. The jobs are out there. They may not be always found in the easiest places, or might be a little bit of a delay to the market right now. But even with um, the current situation, we are starting to notice an uptick in certain positions with certain industries. So, again, just by listening to this presentation, you have an advantage in going back out to the job market. I hope you gain some valuable information, as you take the next step on your career journey. So thank you so much for listening today. I appreciate it. Awesome.